This is Eric Michael Lloyd, master student in clinical psychology, neuropsych concentration. Today I want to read Ethics and Behavior, uh, volume 24, chapter 6, page 510 through 522. Copyright 2014, Taylor and Francis Group, LLC. Influence on The title of it is called Influence of Culture on Ethical Decision Making in Psychology. The authors are Ping Zhen and Matt J. Gray, Department of Psychology, University of Wyoming. Also, Wen Zhen Zhu and Guang Rong Jiang, Department of Psychology, Central China Normal University. Hubei Provincial Key Laboratory of Human Development and Mental Health. This study focused on the influence of American and Chinese cultures on consequentialism orientation in decision-making with the broader context of psychologists' academic roles and responsibilities. In addition, the study hypothesized that educational level would affect culturally influenced ethical decision-making in both cultures. Based on the American Psychological Association Ethics Code, 20 ethical scenarios in 5 domains in psychology were created and used to examine the influence of culturally ethical beliefs on psychologists' decision making among 181 participants. The results indicated that significant cultural differences in consequentialism orientation differentiated Chinese and American participants and influenced their resolution of ethical issues. Introduction. Because it is one of the fastest growing populations in the world and is a collectivist culture, Chinese samples have increasingly been the focus of cross-cultural behavioral research, Lee 2011. However, the great majority of ethics research bearing on the practice of psychology has been conducted in Western nations, and findings are typically published in English. Thus, we know little about how psychologists from non-Western societies might respond to specific ethical dilemmas in the practice of psychology, Tang 2007. Further, there were few published studies on how Chinese psychologists make their ethical decisions in clinical practice, Zhao et al. 2011. Taken together, these factors speak to the importance of investigating possible differences in ethical decision making between Chinese and American psychologists. In the domain of moral psychology, dealing with ethical issues during psychologists' activities is central to their scientific, educational, and professional roles. The American Psychological Association's Ethical Principles of Psychologists and Code of Conduct, American Psychological Association 2010, provides guidelines for ethical issues encountered in psychologists' activities in the United States. Areas covered include but are not limited to the clinical practice of psychology, research, teaching, supervision of trainees, public service, social intervention, program design and evaluation and administration. Campbell, Vasquez, Benke, and Kinscherf 2010. American ethics and Chinese ethics stem from different historical backgrounds and are derived from different philosophies. Consequentialism, the view that morality is all about producing the right kinds of overall consequences, is a controversial area in the area of ethics. Controversial issue in the area of ethics. Darwall 2003. Rule consequentialism, typically representing major understanding of cause and effect of human nature, is popularly accepted among Westerners. Goodman 2008. Rule consequentialists like John Stuart Mill argued that following rules can produce the most impartial good. Van Noorden 2011. Rule consequentialism is the view that it is morally wrong for an agent to do an action if and only if that action violates the ideal moral code, where the ideal moral code is a set of rules for which internalization would have the best consequences. Kahn 2012. Rule consequentialism is alleged to be operative among American psychologists who believe that a morally right action is one that produces a good and impartial action, outcome, or consequence. Hooker, 2000. For example, a psychologist found that one of his colleagues had a private encounter with a current client in a hotel and therefore became aware of the fact that there was a sexual relationship between them. If this psychologist shows a strong orientation toward rule consequentialism, he would report the relationship to a supervisor or licensing board. In contrast, traditional Chinese ethical beliefs with their roots in Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism emphasize the maintenance and propriety of relationships as the most important consideration in ethical deliberation. Confucians advocated differentiated caring, the doctrine that one should care more for and have stronger moral obligations toward friends and relatives than strangers. Van Norden, 2000. However, Moists argue that we should treat our friends and relatives the same way as we do strangers. Moism, seen as a major rival to Confucianism, evolved about the same time as Confucianism in ancient China. No matter how they weigh the importance of different human relationships, both Confucians and Moists consider human relationships more important than any other aspect of human life. According to Moists, evaluation of the moral worth of an action should be based on how much it contributes to the basic goods of a state and the harmony of a group. One of the keys to achieving the basic goods of a state is to maintain good human relationships. To be ethical is to do what one's relationships require, because the basic goods in Moist consequentialist thinking are order, material, wealth, and increase in population. Lowe and Shaughnessy, 1999. The importance of outcomes that are good for the state outweighs the importance of the individual pleasure and pain. Thus, state consequentialism or Moist consequentialism may be more influential among Chinese psychologists because it evaluates the moral worth of an action based on how much it contributes to social harmony of a state. In Renault, 2005, in the context of the previous example, if the psychologist shows a strong orientation toward state consequentialism, he is unlikely to report his colleague's violation to the ethics code to a supervisor or licensing board. Currently, no empirical research has compared or evaluated American and Chinese psychologists with respect to constructs of consequentialism and their impact on ethical decision making. Based on these two contrasting variants of cultural and ethical beliefs, it was hypothesized that there would be substantial differences between Chinese psychologists and American psychologists in how they understand ethics and academic integrity within the broader context of psychologists' academic roles and responsibilities. This study investigated the influence of ethical beliefs resulting from different cultures on psychologists' ethical decision making. Educational level may also impact ethical decision making of individuals. The finding that advanced education level has been found to predict moral development of trainees in the area of public health implies that educational level might impact ethical decision making of trainees in the area of public health. Geddes, Salvatore, and Eva, 2009. However, no current research has focused on how educational level impacts ethical decision making in psychology. According to study hypotheses, it was expected that there would be significant differences between American psychologists and Chinese psychologists in decisions and rationales for 20 ethical scenarios. Hypothesis 1. American psychologists would be more rule consequentialism oriented in their decision making, whereas Chinese psychologists would be more state consequentialism oriented globally and in each of the 5 subdomains. Hypothesis number 2. Participants at the advanced educational level, master's level, and PhD would show less state consequentialism orientation than undergraduates globally and in each of the 5 domains. Hypothesis number 3. Interaction between culture and educational level interaction was predicted with respect to rule consequentialism. Specifically, rule consequentialism would increase with educational levels among American psychologists, but decrease as a function of educational level among Chinese psychologists. B, for hypothesis number 3, is cultural differences in consequentialism orientation between two countries would be significant among participants at the advanced educational level, master's level, and PhD, but not among undergraduates. So that's all I'm going to leave off for now. This was brought to the forefront of my mind because of the need to stay on top of and stay active with cultural competence and reading and consuming that research. I'll go ahead and read the maybe the method, the procedure, and the results discussion in the next video because I don't want to make these videos too long. I hope that was interesting. Maybe gets one thinking about the differences between psychologists that are Chinese American and American psychologists and how they interpret ethics between those two types of ethical decision-making strategies. Thank you.